This video couldn't have been done without the great help, architecture, vision, and timeless energies of Daniel Dent. You'll see him in the top left part of this particular screen. He's an IBM Storage Virtualize engineer, gets top recognition and awards for all of his great efforts that you're about to see on screen, as well as in the thousands of people who will be using the Storage Virtualize version 8.6 in the coming months and years. His work on policy-based replication, in this case HA, is wonderful. My name's Andrew Greenfield. I'm a global engineer, and in this video, you'll see us describing the setup, demo, and execution of PBR, or Policy-Based Replication HA, or active-active, formerly known as HyperSwap. Now it's really called HyperSwap version 2.0. I'll be showing off safeguarded copies, or SGC, along with Copy Services Manager. Now, in case you're not a visual person or an oral person, no problem. You can get the PDF on the right-hand side because all of this is documented online and also on the PDF as well. Now, on this next slide, you're going to see my lab in Poughkeepsie, New York. That's right, on site A is Macbeth, FlashSystem 9100, and I'll be doing the safeguarded copies. They're immutable, as well as local snapshots, both writable, thin, and full clones, and I'll show how we can replicate them to site B. And by the way, on site B, you can do the same. All of these are connected over fiber channel using my Brocade SAN64B6 switch. And I have SR690s that are running ESX in my lab. And on the other side, of course, site B is Macduff, another FlashSystem 9100. And all of this is in the same lab, so realistically, well underneath 300 feet. But Metro Mirror and active-active distances are far longer than that. So this can be very useful for a lot of people. Now, on this next slide, you'll see Macbeth on the left and Macduff on the right, and you'll see that we can use Fiber Channel or iSCSI for the replication link, and we call this HyperSwap version 2.0, but really it's Sync, but it's active-active on both sides. We'll get into that next. That means you can write on both sides. But the key thing that you'll be seeing is that every volume will exist on both sides. It's HA, by the way. Remember, you can have systems that have just single volumes that aren't in high availability, so that's not a problem either. You don't have to have every volume in HA. But either way, hosts will be able to access either site as long as they're zoned properly based on a Lua. And we'll be getting into that next. And a Lua will determine the paths to get to that particular single SCSI ID so that in case of a failover, the host automatically reorders its paths and updates automatically. And you'll see that right here where we've got the host on either side and they're going to connect to the volume using their multipath or a Lua driver. And it's just to a single volume as far as they're concerned. So the applications above them don't know anything. It's just all these surviving paths. In case one goes away, it uses other ones. And if the host uses a non-preferred path, then the I/O is sent over automatically to the other side. Not a problem. We have that intelligence. We've explored this in some other videos, and I can provide those links in the metadata as well. I'm going even deeper under the covers. We mentioned about SCSI Lua earlier. Here it is on the right-hand side, so you can look at it. And again, as a repeat, if there's any change in the state of the paths that are handled by a Lua, the operating system simply reorders and reshuffles, marks them as bad or inoperable, and the host continues on any surviving path. So that means it'll go to the secondary site, etc., and they'll resync the replication afterwards. All of this is transparent to the actual applications above the operating system. And you'll see a little bit of that later on in this demo. And we also have some HyperSwap failover demos that I've done. They're in the metadata as well. Let's get into the setup now of PBR, or policy-based high availability. So a lot of screens are going to look very similar because we have two exact screens and systems. They're using the same code. So we're on Macbeth right now. So we'll do the first step of creating the pool. And as you can see, it's named Pool 0 by default. You can also add the checkbox for data reduction so it can actually do further dedupe and compressing of all the volumes. Now I'm going to add the storage to this particular pool. So on both systems, I have 24 FlashCore modules. I'll use DRAID 6. You'll see it's going to create those RAID arrays and add this storage into that particular pool. As you can see, the usable capacity and the capacity details have been updated with all of that. And as you can see, I'm going to rename this a little bit more descriptive, Macbeth, because we're going to have two pools that we're going to be connecting very soon. And I want to make sure there's no problems. So here we go. We're going to go to Macduff now. And you can see the difference in the upper left. just the name, but the same screen. So we're going to go to pools, create pool. And in this case, I'm going to save myself a step. I'm just actually going to rename this now, and I won't do data reduction. But you could. You don't have to have them symmetrical. So you can have one side data reduced, the other one not. Same thing here, though. We're going to add that storage again. So 24 FlashCore modules into the storage. Remember, they don't have to be symmetrical either. So you can have different storages on either side of your PBR. So I've now created both of the sides. So now let's link them together. We're going to go back to Macbeth, as you can see, and I need to create that partnership. So here it is. They've already been zoned, but I can use IP. So you can see, I can see Macduff. They've exchanged their certificates. I just put in the links and any background copyright percentages. If I had to worry about that, I don't. It's a lab, obviously. So Macbeth is reaching out to Macduff. Now let's go over to Macduff. You can see that in the upper left. And I'm going to do the same steps here. Macbeth exchanges the certificate. I put in the link. I put in everything else. And then I click on create. And now Macduff is reaching out to Macbeth. You see Macbeth has already answered. And for those who are colorblind, you'll see that it's green, but it says configured as well. And the check inside that also gives a nice confirmation that everything's good, that Macduff and Macbeth. And Macbeth is actually finishing up its side. So while we're waiting for that, we can add the pool link, though, because they've completed. So we have Macduff and Macduff's pool talking to Macbeth's and Macbeth's pool. And I'll use standard provisioning for those volumes. I don't need to set up another provisioning policy, but if I wanted to, I could. So that way you can have some lockdown provisioning policies for all of your volumes. So now we've created the pools, the storage, and the linkages. So now let's go to the next step here. We have to create a partition that's going to be seen as high availability. And we're on Macbeth again. So we'll choose high availability replication. We'll choose its buddy, Macduff, and we'll tell it, hey, yeah, we're going to use Macbeth as the primary or the preferred management as well. So we'll then get the chance to download the IP quorum, and you'll see that in just a few seconds here. And I'm going to go into a little bit of a detail on this slide about the IP quorum application. So we have two systems, and we have all these volumes, and as soon as you'll see the slide in just a second here come up here. There we go. The tiebreaker on the left-hand side. So basically, a quorum witness is in case something happens and one side goes down or the communication is disrupted, the tiebreaker will help resolve the tie so that the hosts understand which is a primary, which is a secondary, so we won't have any split brain issues. So it's always going to monitor that replication health. And if there's any disruptions, it'll actually be the tiebreaker. Now, there's ways to influence the ties depending on your site in case you want to have a preferred winner. We can talk about that in a future video if you want. Feel free to reach out. But back to the demo, we've linked the pools. And now it's time to create a policy. And you can see Daniel Dent again giving him top notch. So here we go. We're going to create a policy now for this partition. And we'll call it Macbeth, Macduff, high availability. Of course, it is a high availability two-site topology. We're going to go to other things in the future. Wink, wink. We'll click on create. So it's now created that partition, and let's name it just so we have this available for our reporting. So HA for high availability partition. So we have the policy. We've just created the partition name. And the next thing we'll do is go on to the volume group and volumes. So here we are for the volume group and volumes themselves. And this is the real secret sauce. By creating volume groups, we're able to make things a lot easier for any HA and for the administrator. So the first things first is we've created the volume group now. Let's put some volumes in that volume group. And of course, just for the demo here, we'll put in a series of 5 volumes of 10 gigabytes each. And of course, you can change any of this. You can even make it thin or data reduced, or even map them as well. But in this case, just for quickness, we will just do the create of the volume group and those volumes inside them. So the good thing is this has now created those 5 volumes. We can map it to a host, but we'll skip this step for now and go on to some other things. I'll show it later on in the video, I promise. So take a look. We now have those 5 test volumes inside that HA partition, Macbeth to Macduff. And let's go to that secondary site again. And you'll see, once I go to that HA partition now, remember we didn't go this before, so our friend McDuff, or Site B, has already, notice the green arrows in the lower left, has those 5 volumes. And of course, we haven't launched that IP quorum yet. That's why you see that a little shaded out, but we could launch that as well. We don't have any host mapped, but we do have those test volumes and volume groups all set. You'll see the volumes 5 and volume group 1 over there. Now, back to this again, so you can see on McDuff here, again, the storage partition, so you can view the information. You can see that's established, and you'd actually see a further graphic if I had the IP quorum running as well. As you can see on the dashboard of McDuff, it looks very similar to Macbeth, and we'll be switching over to both sides in just a second here so you can see it. So as you can see, almost identical between Macbeth and McDuff for the dashboard. A green board across, everything's working, all HA is working, and of course the same screen on both sides. So as you can see, here we go, showing a little bit on the left-hand side that I'm actually in McDuff, but I can switch over to Macbeth, and it actually shows that down there below with the actual little indicator box. You can see I'm on my McDuff right now, and you can see if I switch back to Macbeth, it'll actually change that little box in that lower left. But now let's go to a live workload demo. So we've done the initial setup, but watch, I'll be changing that setup, and I'll be showing you how to do safeguarded as well as regular snapshots on both systems. But first, this is Spectrum Control, and it looks very much like Storage Insights. And I just want you to see that all during this time, I've started some workloads on Macbeth, and I could go to Macduff too. And anything that's on Macbeth would have a similar workload characteristic on Macduff because it'll send over all the writes. And you can see all the key performance indicators. So if you have Spectrum Insights, you'll see everything mapped out as well, that it will know about some of the partnership between Macbeth and Macduff. And I'll see some of those volumes as well. And as you see, I've already started to create some interesting volumes for the demo I'm about to show you. So you can see some of the performance, which I've already kicked off, my Oracle demo and my SQL demo. So you can see a nice workload. And we'll be using that a little bit in the upcoming demo here. But you can see in Spectrum Connect here and Control about how everything's nicely charted. You can export this. You can look by hours, days, weeks, etc. Now then, we are now on Macbeth, and you can see that it will keep track of things on a moment by moment. I believe it's a 5-minute rolling window. So that's why we use Spectrum Control or Storage Insights. And you can actually highlight over so you can see the IOPS or megabytes per second that are going on through the system here. Obviously not too much. The system is very little taxed here, less than 200 megabytes per second. Not too much. Well, let's go over to our storage partitions though. That's the key point. Now then, you can see that I've removed those test volumes. That's why we're in red. And as you can see, I have no volumes whatsoever on Macduff and Macbeth. And so let's actually set this up now for my Oracle. So the first thing I have to do, of course, is I have to map a host. So I'll put in the name. And I'll grab some WWPNs. So I have a host now that's defined on Macbeth. And as you can see right now, I don't have anything on Macbeth's standard volume pool or even in the volume group, but we're going to change that. Take a look. So no volume groups. I've cleaned up from earlier. So now let's go actively and create a brand new volume group here for this particular application, Oracle. I'm going to go Oracle HA and the volume group VG. So I've created an empty volume group, but of course you know where it's going next. I'll be creating some volumes inside there and then mapping them to the host as well as taking snapshots. So you'll see that next. So inside, you can see that I have the HA policy. Yeah, that replication policy, high availability. It's now green saying, okay, I've got a volume group. That sounds great. Now I've got to put some volumes in. So for the purpose of this demo, since it's a little bit bigger, I'm just going to create two 50 gigabyte drives. Same thing as before, you can do additional capacity savings. You can create and map them like we talked about earlier. So for example, you'll see that I not only create these volumes in this volume group, fantastic. And you can see, by the way, in blue, the command line equivalent, by the way, for those who are eager beavers. If you want to do this on SSH or for your automation or scripting, sure. As you can see, I'm about to map them with those SCSI IDs. Great. So you can see that they're online. We still have that replication policy. Notice we're logged into Macbeth. Notice the lower left there. And now let's do an internal snapshot policy, for example. And you can create your own too. You'll just check out a particular date and time to start with. And notice the left-hand box that you can use the internal scheduler for both regular snapshots or snapshots that are immutable, known as safeguarded snaps. So you can see that right now I've done an Oracle snapshot policy. So every hour it'll take a regular snapshot, which is normally not writable unless you decide to make it writable, but you can. Immutable safeguarded snapshots are not writable ever. You only can take clones from them or thin clones to then write to those. So as you can see, I've now done another snapshot manually. I'm just making sure you can see some of the GUI here. So you can see that we've done a snapshot that way. And now I'm going to switch over to CSM. Let's take a look. CSM says, okay, I see Macbeth. Let's refresh just so it knows what's going on here. Give it a second. You'll see it says completed on the middle column there. Let's go into the sessions. You'll see I haven't created any sessions. Now remember, this is the external scheduler here. So I'm going to tell it I want to create a snapshot on Macbeth. And it also has some other functionality too. And it says, oh, hey, I can see some of the other volume groups. Great. So now that it knows about the volume group we just created, there we go. We've named it Macbeth there. So it automatically sees that other snapshot, but notice it doesn't say safeguarded yes, it says safeguarded no. But let's create a brand new safeguarded snapshot with the retention day of 1. Fantastic. You'll see it just completed. Notice a different name called CSM snapshot, but notice safeguarded now says yes for the one we just created inside CSM. And now, of course, if we want, we can actually do some of these other things. We can clone the snapshot. So which one do we want to clone? This is going to be a full clone of the safeguarded. So in other words, that safeguarded is immutable, but I can take a full clone of that one, and you'll see that it just completed. And it's going to go out to become its own volume group back on Macbeth. We'll see that next. And so you'd say, well, what about if I just want to do space efficient and not have any full clones at all? If I want to just do test dev, sure, do the thin clone. So now let's do a thin clone of that same immutable snapshot, just so we have two of the exact same, but one is a full clone, which is a full copy. The other is going to remain its links, its delta. So you can see that we now have that thin clone snapshot created, and you can see that it actually created to a different volume group as well, and we'll get to that next. You can see that that's what's so great about volume groups, though. It grabbed all the volumes inside it, and we can actually take this new snapshot, this new thin snap, and assign it back to a host. So instantly it can be remapped and sent to another host for test dev or anything else you want. So as you can see for the other original snapshot, I just want to make sure you can see the names that we are indeed doing the correct volumes. So take a look. Remember I told you we created that brand new volume group when we actually did that other restore. Take a look. So that's why it says, okay, hey, I created this for you and I did what you told me to. And here's all of those volumes as a full clone ready for you to map anywhere you want. Now, if you see that I go to Flash Copy, you'll see this is some of the other behind the scenes of those thin clones. This is very exciting here. That's why you didn't see it in the volume groups, is that I can actually do other things. I can do other clones or backups or even create new target volumes from all of these. That's why I see those 2 and those 3s and those 1s, because those are additional snapshots or flash copies that we did, which aren't reflected inside the volume group. So I've actually shown you some of the stuff inside the volume group and then some of the other stuff that happens outside the volume group, depending on what your business needs are. And if I want, I can create a thin clone of this original volume group. Now remember, I'm using internally now, so I'll call it a thin VG. I'll put it in the same pool. So I'd say, okay, where is that? Okay, so hang on. You got to go back to the volume groups. Take a look. Now I have VG1 and thin. So for example, here's the one that I just created. Notice 2.2 and 3.2. So it's created those other 2 volumes. And no, it doesn't have additional snapshots inside this new volume group, but it is a thin of the other. As you see, the earlier one that we created, the VG0 and the VG1. Again, those are the 2 volumes. It doesn't have any other policies or snapshots to it. And as you can see, this is our VG1. Now, this is the only one that's actually synchronized. You can see that we've got those 2 snapshots, and it's only the one part of the replication policy. I can take a third snapshot internally here, and again, you'll see it's not safeguarded. You'll see it just increments there. Now, just out of curiosity, in case you want, you can unassign a policy as well, and that way rely only on internal or external. So in this case, now let's do an internal snapshot that's safeguarded. So now you can see, I'll try every hour to do a safeguarded snapshot policy. You can actually see that safeguarded icon in the upper left of that particular box. And notice it says, okay, hey, I see these snapshots. And no, it hasn't done that extra snapshot that we just assigned internally. That's a safeguarded one. We just have the CSM one for now. Now back here on sessions, you can actually see that when we do the refresh, it actually says, okay, what's going on here? And you can create an immediate safeguarded snapshot because CSM has some extra really nice tricks. So it'll actually do, and it just completed. So instead of waiting for that internal scheduler to go, you can use CSM. And you can see the other safeguarded snapshots. See the bottom yes. So now we've created lots of volume groups. And if we go to VG, our original one, you can see we've made a lot of snapshots. You can see which ones are safeguarded. You can see the time and date stamp. You can see the expiration as well, because the safeguarded ones do expire if you choose to, and you can change that date as well as part of that safeguarded policy, by the way. And so here's that snapshot that we talked about. That's the one we just recently did. Now, if you want, we can actually do a clone again. Now, I'll do a clone of the original safeguarded snapshot. You'll see that it's running again. And it just completed. So it'll refresh in just a few seconds here. But since we just made a clone, you're actually going to see it as a new volume group. So now you'll see a brand new volume group. There it is. Yeah. Which has those volumes as a clone. Just so you can show, here's my Oracle Swing Bench. You can see that it's been live during this whole time, doing its merry little thing. You can see I'm just using a simple workload generation on Swing Bench. Thanks again for watching this video. Can't wait to see you in an upcoming IBM event. Feel free to reach out to myself, Andrew Greenfield, or Daniel Dent. And if you want, by all means, feel free to catch us at the next coming TechU or user group. And otherwise, talk to you soon.